Hi guys! I feel like God has been asking me to record this video of part of my testimony and share it with you, so I hope you all are encouraged by it. About a year ago, it was my 8th grade year and we were in basketball season and I started to get a pain in my right leg. It wasn't anything terrible, so I just ignore it. I would come home and I'd ice it and I'd heat it in electric stim and ibuprofen, and the pain was pretty much bearable, so I made it through the rest of the season without really complaining. And then we had an off season between basketball and track, and within that off season I was having no pain and I was fine, so I really kind of just dismissed the thought of like my leg being injured. So when track started, it was within the first week that my pain had came back, and it had increased with every single practice. And I remember my coaches had always said, like, you know, everybody has pain during track. Like, that's just, it's a rough sport, like it really is, like everything kind of hurts. So I didn't want to be seen as one of the weak kids, so I sucked it up and I didn't say anything. I really didn't complain, and I was a triple jumper, and at our first meet I was an inch off of our school record to break triple jump record. So I remember I was super excited about that. It had been something I was close to the year before, and I was really upset when I didn't break it. So this year I was like, yeah, it's got to be my year, like I'm gonna break this record. And I remember I had placed so much value and worth in that record. Like, once I broke that, people would like me. Like, once I broke that, I would be happy with myself. And with that motivation to break that record, I ignored the pain and I pushed it back. I would come home from practice and I'd take ice bath and I would heat it and take ibuprofen and coat it in icy hot. And every time before I'd jump, I would go through this same routine. I would take my ibuprofen and I would coat my leg in icy hot, and then I'd warm up, and like it was cold out normally, so you know the icy hot would heat it up and it would just be numb and I really couldn't feel anything. And I made it through most of the season. I think there was about 4 or 5 track meets left, and my pain had started to get worse, but that record was just like so close, and I had to break that record. I thought that once I broke that record, like I would be worth it, like I would be good enough for myself. And that was not smart of me because I remember I was at the Osage track meet and I had went through my little routine and I was like, okay, this is the day, like this is the day I'm gonna break it, like it's gotta happen today. And I remember I jumped and I was a quarter of an inch off of the record. And I was so mad at myself because a quarter of an inch is just like a tiny little bit. Like, why couldn't I have jumped just that little bit more, and then I would have had that record and everybody would have been so excited and it would have been great. And I was so consumed by not breaking it and beating myself up that I didn't feel the pain. And the next morning I woke up and I walked up my stairs and I started crying because the pain was just so bad. There was just shooting pains going up and down my leg, like my whole right side of my body just hurt so bad. And at that point my mom was like, okay, like we have to do something, like we have to go to the trainer. So I was just like, okay, like I'll do that, but I have to get back, like I have to break this record. I will go, but I'm not sitting out for the rest of the season. So she's like, okay. So we go to the trainer and he was concerned of the area of the pain, so he sent me to an orthopedic doctor in Topeka to get x-rays. So we went and got x-rays and they came back abnormal, and he's like, I want you to get an MRI so we can figure out what this is because it looks weird. There's like a dark triangle above my right knee. So I was like, oh, like, okay, how long is this gonna take? Like, I gotta get back for this record. And I remember I missed a track meet for my MRI, and when the MRI results came back, they were supposed to come back in like 4 days. So I was sitting out of practice and I wasn't really doing anything. And I remember the day that we were supposed to get the results back, my parents were kind of acting funny, and I kept on asking them, like, what's up? Like, have you heard anything? Like, we were supposed to get the call today. And they're like, nope, we haven't heard anything. So I was like, okay. So my sister had an NHS banquet that night, and we were going out to a restaurant with the other Linden High School students that were in this NHS. So I remember we were all getting ready for that. My parents just kept on looking at me weird. I was like, why are you guys staring at me? I was like, what's going on? Like, why don't you talk to me? Like, you always tell me what you're thinking, like, what's wrong? And they're like, oh, nothing, like, we're fine, like, we'll talk about it later. So I was like, okay. So then we sit down at the banquet, and my track coach comes up to me, and we had been bugging him, like, hey, if you hear anything, like, let us know, like, we gotta get her back, because she has to break this record. And so we kept on bugging them, like, hey, like, if you hear anything, like, let us know. So he had sat down, and he's like, hey, we heard something. And so then he gets up and he leaves, and I look over at my mom, and I was like, what? I was like, did you hear something? And she's like, yes, but we'll talk about it later. And I was like, Mom, I was like, why aren't you telling me? I don't understand. And this isn't how she wanted to tell me, but I wouldn't stop bugging her, and I was being kind of stupid. But she was like, okay, you're being referred on to a bone cancer specialist. And about that time, I was like, what? Like, surely they got the wrong results. Like, that's not mine. Like, it's just a little pain. And she's like, I was at a loss for words, like I am right now, of course. But I remember at that time, Zach was like, what? Like, Abby has to go to, what? She has cancer? And, like, at that time, everybody's turning around looking at me, and I was just like, oh, this is great. Like, I have cancer, and the whole town knows. And I started crying, and I walked into the bathroom, and my mom followed me, and she got me calmed down, and she's like, we gotta support your sister right now. We'll talk about this later. So I was like, okay, I can do this. So I walked back out, and I sit down, and then I was like, yeah, no, I can't do this. Like, I gotta go. I gotta leave. Like, I can't handle this. So I looked over at my dad, and he's like, okay, let's go. Let's get out of here. So we go and sit in the car, and I just started bawling, because, like, my whole world kind of just flashed before my eyes. Like, I'm 14 years old. Should I really, like, I don't have cancer. Like, this isn't right. This isn't who I am. Like, I'm the girl that goes and breaks track records. Like, that's who I am. That's where my value lies, not in having cancer. And I was sitting next to my dad, and I've always known him to be somebody that could always fix my problems. If I had any sort of problem, he was there, and he fixed it in a matter of seconds. Like, he always knew exactly what to do. He always knew exactly what to say, and I'd feel better, and he could handle it. And I remember at this point I was so broken and at a loss of what to do, and I turned over and I looked at my dad, and I was like, what are we gonna do? Like, how are you gonna fix this one, Dad? And he started crying too. He just started bawling, and he's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. He's like, we're gonna find you the best doctor, and we're gonna get this figured out, and they're gonna heal you. And that was probably one of the most, like, life-changing moments in my life, because I had always known my dad to fix things. He was always strong. He was always my rock. And in that moment, he didn't know what to do. He didn't have the solution. He didn't know what was wrong with me. And that's when I realized that God was the only one that was going to get me through this situation. And from that moment on, like, he was the one that I had to run to when I started crying in class, because I was so overwhelmed with the feeling that, like, that I was gonna die, you know. And he was the one that I ran to when I'm sitting in the auditorium and we're at the talent show and somebody starts playing the song Cancer, and everybody turns around and stares at me. And it was crazy how the second I would run to him, like, I would just be at complete peace, and that overwhelming feeling that I was drowning just went away. And I felt like I was being hugged by God, and I was at complete peace. And then the doctor called back, and they're like, yes, you're being referred to a bone cancer specialist, and we just wanted to let you know that you're released to go and jump. And I was like, of course I am. I was like, now I can go and break that record that I had held so high earlier, the record that I thought was going to bring me everything that I wanted in life. And I remember I had really struggled with deciding what to do. I had went back and forth, like, I'm gonna jump, no, I'm not gonna jump, I'm gonna jump. And then I finally got the bright idea to pray about it, of course, after multiple hours of terrible thoughts. And I remember hearing very clearly that God said, your value does not lie in that record. It's like, that's not who you are as a person. And he's like, your identity lies in me. And I was like, wow. It's like, okay, so I decided to leave my track uniform at home. I told my coaches that I was sorry and that I didn't care about the record anymore, that I didn't need that to feel good about myself anymore, so what was the point in jumping? So I left it at home and I went and I coached other triple jumpers that day, and it was just a really good learning experience, just to let go of something that I had held so high. In my eyes, it was something that was going to bring me so much joy, but in the end, I had a better time coaching other people instead of jumping myself. And then a couple weeks later, we went to the bone cancer specialist, and it was my last day of 8th grade, and we had our Worlds of Fun trip after that, so we went up to the bone cancer specialist, and then I was going to meet my class at Worlds of Fun. So we go up, and he's looking at all of my MRIs and all of my tests, and he's like, well, this is weird, I don't know what this is, but here's my plan. We're gonna get a full body bone scan, and then we'll go from there. I'll be able to tell so much clearer, what it is. So a couple weeks later, we went and got a full body bone scan, and we're kind of expecting to get results back from this, because he said that it was a better test than an MRI, and I'd be able to see clearly. I mean, he is a specialist, right? He should know what's wrong. And we get the call back, and he says that I have no idea what this is. He's like, I have not seen this before, and I don't know what to tell you. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I've already been through this. The MRI, they didn't know what it was. The x-rays, they didn't know what it was. Come on, you're a specialist, you should know what this is. And he's like, I want you to be on crutches for 6 weeks, and then you'll come back from then, and we'll get another test taken. So I was like, okay, great, now I have to be on crutches. And something that I thought was going to be terrible on crutches, not being able to do anything, was actually a very big blessing in my life, because it actually made me just slow down and just press into God. And I remember I pulled out my Bible and read Songs of Solomon, and I got so much better understanding of God's love for me, and I feel like in that time my relationship with God really deepened, and I remember just praying God, I pray that your calling on my life would open, it would start to happen. I would start to want that, and I would desire what you desire for me. And it was just a really cool time for me, because I had never felt God like that. My relationship with God was always something that my parents had wanted me to have, but in that time I had decided that it was something that I wanted, and it was more important to me than anything else. So yeah. After 6 weeks, we went back to the bone cancer specialist and got an x-ray, and he looks at it, and again, we're expecting to see answers, and he looks at the x-rays, and he's like, yeah, I don't know what this is. It's still there, but I don't know. So I'm going to, because you're in no pain right now, I'm going to release you to play sports in high school. You can play volleyball, and you'll come back in October and get another MRI. And I was like, are you serious? After all of this, you still don't know what it is. And I was just like, wait, no, I can't do that. God's got this no matter what happens, no matter what the outcome is of this, it was God's plan, and I trust that. So I just had to push those thoughts away very quickly, because it can kind of get you into a deep, dark hole that you don't want to be in. So I went back to volleyball in high school, and I played, and I really wasn't in too much pain, and I really didn't hold anything back. I was all over the floor and diving all over the place, and it really made my parents scared, because every time I'd hit the floor, they'd hold their breath. But it was kind of fun. I was just at complete peace, and I was just able to let go of the fear of hurting myself even more, or having cancer. The thought wasn't really even in my head anymore, because God was there, and he had taken that away from me. Then October came, and I was kind of getting a little nervous, kind of letting the deep thought or the dark thoughts come back into my head, this still isn't over, this is still going on in my life. It's so much of a reality that, I can't just push it back anymore. It's coming up, we're gonna get answers this time. And we walked in, and we got my MRI, and the doctor comes in, and he sits down, And he's like, I don't know what it is. He's like, I never figured it out. He's like, I don't know. I've never seen anything like it before, but it's completely gone. He's like, your MRIs are totally normal. He's like, it's a completely healthy leg. And I was just like, whoa, like, this is over. And I think that's probably the coolest part of the story, because my track record didn't help me. My father couldn't help me. And the bone cancer specialist didn't figure it out, but God did. He was the one that knew what it was the whole time. He was the one that carried me when I had those dark thoughts, and he changed me into the person that I am right now because of this situation, and he healed me, and I think that's so cool. And I just felt like I was supposed to share that with you because it was so encouraging to me. I feel like maybe it would be encouraging to you also. And the point of me telling you this story, I feel like God really wanted me to share that everybody has those things that they hold on to and that they place higher than God, that they have more value in, that they think their identity lies in. Like, once I get this, I'll be great. Or, you know, that thing that they keep on running back to that makes them feel so good inside. I feel like God is really just calling us to let that go, because that's not going to bring us the fulfillment that we need. It never will. It's always God. He's always the answer. I don't know what you're going through at all, but everybody has their hard situations. Everybody has those hard times, and they all have those things that they hold on to. But right now, like, I know that God is the solution. I don't know what you're going through, but God is the solution. He always is, and He will always be there for you. He will never stop pursuing you, and He is calling you just to come to Him. He's calling you just to sit down and rest and press into Him, because He has so much for you. He has that joy that you're so in need for. He has it waiting for you. If you just come and you just ask for it, He'll give it to you. And He wants so much a relationship with you. So all you have to do is sit down and talk to Him. He's not going to run away from you. He doesn't hold things against you. He forgives everything, and He wants you. Okay, so I think that's it. Hope you guys have a good day. Thanks for watching.